Namaste, nerds. This is Navinad, Budget Pub Stomper. Thank you for joining me for this very auspicious occasion. It is the first day of the rest of your life, also known as the first day of 2025, also known as the first ever, but first annual, Budget Stompy Awards. So we're going to be talking about the cards that came out in 2024 that are the best cards for budget competitive or $100 max Cedh. We're going to have three categories, and I'm going to give this fantastic fake award with a very large fake cash prize to a fake kind of non-entity, which is just going to be the best card in each of these three categories. And the categories are going to be the number one commander that came out of 2024, the best card for the 99 that came out of 2024, and also we're going to do the best reprint from 2024. So without further ado, there's been a lot of ado, and I don't like ado, so without further ado, let's get into some of the top cards from 2024, and then I'm going to let you know which one is going to receive this award. There's been a lot, man. We had a lot of really good cards. It was a big year for Commander, but it was a big year for competitive Commander. And I would even say it was a really big year for budget competitive Commander. So what are the criteria for best card? What's going to be, and we're, I could do like a runner-up. I don't know. We're kind of doing this ad lib kind of thing. But the criteria is going to be really basically this, like based on the bang for the buck, right? So the dollar amount to power level, basically like this. If I had to choose one card from 2024 and play that card only for the rest of my budget building life, what would that card be? So that is gonna just kind of automatically have kind of boiled into it or baked into it the dollar to power ratio, which is what we're always looking at. That's what we're always trying to get at when we're getting into these budget competitive builds. It's all about trying to spend your $100 as well as you could. So let's talk about some of the cards that sort of made the list of maybes, made the, like, not even honorable mentions. These were the ones that were on my radar, and honestly, any one of these could have gotten this kind of first place, the Stompy Award. Just based on the dollar amount, right? Like, I think the best card that's come out for my decks in 2024 is Archdruid's Charm, but that didn't win because it's $5.59, and you can do without Archdruid's Charm. If this were $2, this would be number one, hands down, not close. But let's just take these in order. Aven Interrupter. It's $2. It's like a white counterspell, and it's a very difficult to interact with white counterspell, and it gives you a body. This is a fantastic card. I think that a lot of people, even in like CEDH, are sleeping on it. This should be in, I think, low color Tymna decks, for instance. It should be in stacks decks, white base stacks deck. I guess the problem, if there is a problem, is it's white 1. So I guess it'd be like your low color white stacked stacks or your low color Tymna decks. But at $2, surely you can find a home for this guy in maybe most of your white-based budget competitive builds. But this one didn't win. Basking Brood-Scale. Is this like the most powerful card of all time? No, but what this is 17 cents. And I would say it revitalized, invigorated, it almost created, well, it didn't create an archetype, but it gave certain decks enough layered combos to put them on my radar and make me feel comfortable actually saying to a friend, like, look, this is a deck I think you could build and do well with. So like Balin the Haymaker, for instance, there's combos that basically allow you to go infinite with Basking Brood-Scale. But it's not just an A plus B. There's like multiple pieces, so they layer really well. And as long as you're trying to do something like make infinite +1/+1 counters or infinite tokens or something like that, it just goes off. And it's also 17 cents, so it's got to be a mention, right? The other one I'm thinking of is, I can never remember the order of their names. It's one of the partners, but they're not partners. It's oh hell. It's the red, white, green, one, angel, something. God, it's an A plus B combo in the command zone that has like it goes infinite with Heliod, it goes infinite with the Red Terror. It'll come to me. But that's so there's been at least 2 decks that I built on Moxfield this year and recommended to actual people that are building the decks that I would not have even discussed if it weren't for the printing of Basking Brood Scale. So that's got to get a mention. Disciple of Freyalise. This makes my it makes my full power CDH Selvala list, but it's just an all-star in my $100 Selvala list, which I do actually have in paper. And Disciple of Freyalise is not only... So, let me back up. One of the kind of, if you want to call it a problems with Selvala is it's hard to know how many lands to play in the deck, because you don't really want to play a bunch of lands. You want gas. You have a bunch of dorks, but you want to start with a land or 2 in your hand, right? And so these things are kind of especially important in that deck. And if we're talking just specifically about Selvala, this also, not only is it a land or gas depending on what you need, but it also gives you another way to outlet your infinite mana. Now that might not be obvious, but and if it's not obvious, this is a bolt land on one side and a creature on the other, and the creature for 6 mana, when you cast it, gain X life and draw X cards. You sacrifice a creature and you draw and gain life equal to its power. So if you can pump up your Marwyn, if you're playing Marwyn, or your Selvala, you don't even need to pump it up. If you can get to infinite mana, you can, and usually when you're doing infinite mana with Selvala, you're bouncing things to and fro, right? You're maybe you've got Temur Sabertooth and you're bouncing creatures to your hand and recasting them and so on. So if you are in that situation, you have infinite mana, you cast your commander, or it's already in play, then you cast this Disciple of Freyalise, and the Disciple of Freyalise kills your Selvala, sending it back to the command zone. You draw 2 cards, gain 2 life, and then you just recast Selvala, bounce Disciple back to your hand, and do it again. So not only is it just like a nice little piece to have in the deck when you have like an 8/8 Trampler for 3 mana or whatever, and you'd rather have 8 cards, you can cast this, and when you need a land drop, you just drop it as a land. It's perfect. Fantastic card, super low opportunity cost, but we also, because it's just a land, but in Budget, we also have to look at the opportunity cost of $1.40, and honestly, most of the time, it is just going to be a land. But definitely high marks. Forensic Gadgeteer, it's got combos, it's a nice little engine, and exactly Urza, I think this is the best card to happen to Urza since like the reality chip. Like in Budget Urza, this thing is just fantastic. It goes infinite mana with Basalt Monolith, which could have made my list of top reprints, except for one little minor detail. I wasn't 100% sure that Basalt Monolith actually did get a reprint in 2024, but I digress. In Urza, Forensic Gadgeteer is just a nice value piece. You can tap all of your artifacts in Urza to make mana, and this says whenever you cast an artifact, you make a clue token, and you can tap clues for mana, and it says activated abilities of artifacts cost 1 less, and that includes the cracking of a clue. And so you can obviously see this just gets out of hand even before you run into your Basalt Monolith, and then once you run into your Basalt Monolith, you can tap it for 3 mana, tap it for 3 mana, and you can untap it for 2, so you're in infinite mana land. Forensic Miner, I think 33 cents. It just, it's just kind of a niche piece. It doesn't make all that many decks, but what it did do was create some really good Hulk piles, and I think this will be a card that we'll see moving forward. It's got a lot of combo potential, even outside of just Hulk piles, but I mean especially Hulk piles. And for 33 cents, it had to be in the running. Glaring Fleshraker, I think that we have not yet begun to see the crazy, silly things that are going to be done with this. If you're building Joyra, this thing is going to be really good in Joyra. I've seen it in Obnixilis decks. If you have Obnixilis and this guy and Sensei's Divining Top, you just, with one of your little pinger, no, this is the pinger. You have this guy, Sensei's Divining Top, and Obnixilis, you just win the game. Grim Servant. This is one I'm not seeing get a lot of attention, hence the 13-cent price tag. And I was thinking right before this card came out that black ought to have its tutor on a body. And I didn't come up with this exact idea, but I mean, I think this is pretty good. When Grim Servant enters the battlefield, search your library for a card that's equal to or less than your devotion to black, and it itself has devotion of 1. And of course, if you're playing a black deck, you've got a black commander. It's got at least 1 pip itself, maybe multiple. So if you've got a commander that even has just 1 black pip, when you drop this thing in play, you can search your library for probably most of the cards you'd care to look for. But even just by itself, you drop this, you get your reanimate, you win the game. It's a fantastic piece. People are sleeping on it, and it's 13 cents. Speaking of cards people are sleeping on, how on earth is Volatile Stormdrake 92 cents? That is absurd. This is a card that's... so I play a lot of CEDH, full-powered CEDH. I play tournaments, and my tournament deck right now is, it has been for a while, Malcolm Tana. And I go back and forth, and I have in paper, I have a real copy of the OG Drake. And I go back and forth on whether I want to include Volatile Stormdrake or Gilded Drake, even though Gilded Drake is what, like $150, something like that. It's expensive, right? And Volatile Stormdrake, in a lot of ways, I mean, it's mostly the identical card, but then actually it's got upside in that depending on your deck, it may be better for you to kill certain creatures than to just take control of them. I'm thinking of Collector Oof in specific here. So Volatile Stormdrake, I can tutor with any of my million creature tutors, find this thing, cast it, and then kill. So this will swap control of creatures that have up to 4 CMC. And you could just take the Collector Oof and sack it to a Neoform or something, but a lot of the times with Collector Oof in particular, and Malcolm Tana, or any Malcolm deck, any Malcolm red deck, you probably can't win through a Collector Oof, or a Manglehorn, or what's the other nasty one? There's cards you can't win through. This can steal them, and if it's a stacks piece like a Haper that you need to be dead, you don't have to pay the energy, and then you just kill the thing. Because just stealing Collector Oof doesn't help. Anyway, this is a fantastic card. It should be in every blue budget deck. I didn't realize it was only $92 until I started looking around, so I think it's going to start making its way into more, if not all, of my at least base blue or 2-color blue decks. Valley Floodcaller, this was really up there in contention. Not only is this just a good solid piece for $3 that gives all of your non-creature spells flash, which is fantastic. You can win on top of other people's win attempts. You can win on insteps, but also it has a very inexpensive infinite mana combo. If you have any mana neutral rocks that you're maybe playing anyway, like Basalt Monolith again, Jeweled Amulet, Soul Ring, you can use Valley Floodcaller with one of the 2 1-mana instance that gives target creature the ability to tap to bounce a thing until end of turn, and you can go infinite that way. If you've got a Birds of Paradise in play, you can go infinite mana, even with a mana neutral rock. Or if you have Soul Ring, you can just go infinite mana, kind of regardless. But Valley Floodcaller is in a lot of, probably most CDH decks that have blue in their color identity, as long as they can win the game with non-creatures. And having the extra ability to use a very inexpensive, really budget-friendly infinite mana combo puts it at the top of the list. Marvin is amazing, but doesn't go in a lot of decks. It says for 2 mana it enters, has all the activated abilities of creatures you control that don't have this exact name. So basically all of your non-Marvin creatures it has all the activated abilities of. Mostly the way this is being used is as a semi-quasi haste enabler, but that's not the only way it can be used. But you can put this guy down on one turn, and then the next turn you drop your Fabro Elder or your Bloom Tender, if you can swing the Bloom Tender, and you can tap this guy for a bunch of mana straight away. It's really, really good, and in our format, the only place I've actually seen it so far is the. Oh, I just did the interview with the guy. Oh, I'm gonna find it real quick. I think this is worth pausing for. As soon as I pause it, I've got it's Time. It enables a bunch of new combos with Time, and I think some commander agnostic combos also with Time. We better start moving. I didn't realize we were already at 15 minutes. High Fae Tricksters, $2. Flash, flying, 4/2. It's a reasonable body. And it just says you may cast spells as though they had flash. That's not non-creature spells. It's all spells. So the pros and cons between this and Valley Floodcaller. Valley Floodcaller has this bit of text that whenever you cast a non-creature spell, birds, frogs, otters, and rats get +1/+1 and you untap them. So that's actually what enables the combos. But the thing isn't like, it's not mainly a combo piece. It's mainly a flash enabler. And High Fae Trickster does that part. But High Fae Trickster allows you to play all of your spells with haste. It's like Born Upon a Wind forever, right? So this is a sick card. I'm not seeing it a lot yet in decks, but I expect to moving forward. We had to talk about Bridgeworks Battle. It's just another like Selvala mainstay. I think if you're in a low color green deck, you could just jam this, and if you're in a mono color green deck, you probably ought to just jam this. It works really well in Marwyn and Selvala. A lot of synergy there. Demonic Council is one of the best tutors we've got in the budget format. I play this in one of my CDH decks. It's fine there. If you can enable Delirium, and or if you actually have a demon, any demon in your deck that you want to tutor, you should probably play this tutor for $1.50. And if both, like in the deck I'm playing it in is Armix Thrasios, where I'm playing it as like a Razakath Reanimator list, and I'm using Armix so I can get Delirium really easily, and I am actively looking for a demon, so it's obviously perfect there. This one right here was one of my pick. This was one of my like top cards, but it's also just a little bit more expensive. This is a top of deck tutor, and or a draw 3 for 3 and lose 3, and for 5 mana and 3 life, you can actually tutor for any card, put it on top of your deck, and then draw it and 2 other cards. Busted, but $4. Lively Dirge. This also makes a CDH list or two. It's definitely in your black, red X, your Grixis Malcolm decks for sure. It gives where the big advantage that my Malcolm Tana deck would have had over the Grixis decks for Malcolm was really just the ability to tutor Glinthorn Buccaneer directly into play with a lot of cards. And this does that, but it does that for 74 cents in black. Lively Dirge is crazy. It's another one of those cards that it kind of reinvigorated some archetypes. It created some Buried Alive piles. It's just a good value piece. It's another Entomb, but it's when you're using both of those abilities at the same time, it's a 2 battlefield tutor. The abilities are so it costs 2, and then either +1 or +2 or +3. If you do the +1, so 3 mana, search your library for a card, put it in your bin, and that is any card. For 4 mana total, you can return up to 2 creature cards with total mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That could be any 2 value pieces, a Hate Bear and a value piece, a combo piece. And for the full 5 mana, you can search your graveyard or search your library for a card, put it in your bin, and reanimate up to 2 creatures with mana value 4 or less from the graveyard. At 74 cents, I don't know what you want out of a card. It's a tutor. It's a reanimation spell. It's fantastic. It should see a lot more play than this. It should not be 74 cents, even as an uncommon. Malevolent Rumble. I bet a lot of you guys know about this card. It's like the green version of Impulse. It's like an Impulse, but you have to take exactly a permanent card. But it also puts a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn token into play that has sacrifice this creature, add 1 mana. This is I think this is seeing play in a lot of I don't really play 60 card constructed, but I think it's seen play in some 60 card constructed. It's one of the best cards printed. It's simple. It's the only thing that kind of keeps it off of my tip top is that it is a sorcery, but it does refund one of the mana, or it can act like a mana battery. Pick your poison. 1 mana. Choose one. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact or an enchantment or a creature with flying. And the fact that it only hits flyers, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. The way these sacrifice effects work is if your opponent has, well, they get to pick what they sacrifice. So if it just said sacrifice a creature, that'd be a lot easier. If there's specifically a flying creature that you need to 86, well, chances are you'll get some collateral damage out of it too. A lot of times this is just going to take out a draw engine or maybe a couple of rocks, but for 1 green mana, it's pretty hard to beat. There could be stacks effect that you can't play through. It's 1 green mana. You get a 3-for-1 often, and it avoids things like indestructible or I don't know, regeneration's almost not even a thing anymore. Hexproof. So pick your poison, super good, 40 cents. Jam this in your decks, especially your budget decks, but not strictly your budget decks. It's a card that has seen a little bit of CDH play, and I think could stand to see more CDH play. We already talked about the charm, fantastic. Flare of Duplication, God only knows how this is $1.78. One of the best cards, by far, not close, to come out this year. In fact, I'm going to give you a little spoiler here. This is not my #1 best card for the 99 for the year 2024, but just now thinking about this card makes me think maybe it ought to be. It's so good in decks like anything that's Rograk based, like any of the, which is normally just going to be a CDH thing. But if you haven't seen my video, I do have a Turbo Adnaz what is the Rakdos Turbo Naz that uses Rograk. And Flare of Duplication is fantastic in that deck. It's good in decks that just have disposable creatures like your Magda, some of your Malcolm decks. Yeah, like Magda, Malcolm, Rograk. It's got probably a lot more homes than it's being used in. I mean, it has to have more homes than it's being used in because it's only $1.78 and it is a rare. It just says you may sacrifice a non-token red creature rather than pay its cost. So it's free interaction. And it's a fork. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Somebody tries to cast some big crazy spell that's going to win the game on the spot. Maybe you cast this and win instead. Somebody counters your win. You sacrifice a creature and you counter their counter with your Flare of Duplication. I mean, it's almost unlimited. And even if you don't have a creature to sacrifice or a creature that you're very happy to sacrifice, 3 mana is not the end of the world, especially if you're playing low color red. Red is starting to get some good interaction, but it's not a color that's really been known for its interaction, and that is a very good piece of interaction. Even at 3 mana, a 3 mana fork is not the end of the world by any stretch. Least of all when it's $1.78. It's the best fork spell and it's the cheapest. I don't think Reverberate is cheaper than this. I know Reiterate isn't. And I think it's the best one. Fork, of course, is Reserve List. Long Goodbye. This is kind of a play on Abrupt Decay. It's not, you can't counter it. It's 2 mana. It's instant. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. Planar Genesis is an upgraded impulse if you're in these colors. Instep, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped, or take one of the cards. So it's like an impulse, but you can also just ramp with it, and usually you're going to find a land in the top 4. So if you need a land drop, if you need to ramp, this is ramp, and if not, it gives you some card selection. Works like a standard cantrip for just 2 mana. You can instep this. It's out of this world. Into the Floodmaw, probably the best piece of interaction that came out this year. We have never had this rate for a bounce spell that bounces anything. 1 mana. Return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand, or 1 mana and give them a tapped 1/1, and you can instead return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to owner's hand. This won't bounce your own stuff. Usually, who cares? Even in CDH, this sees a lot of play. It's only and it's an uncommon, but it's $2.24, and that should probably say something. If this weren't blue, it would be the top card, but it's like blue just is swimming in amazing slim interaction. So for that reason, it probably, no spoilers, probably didn't hit my number one spot. Great Train Heist. This is an extra combat spell. It's only $2.51, and it's got all kinds of additional stuff going on. Another one that Magda loves. I play it in Rionia. There are homes for this. It has Spree. It's only one mana cost technically, but you actually have to pay at least 2 mana to cast it. You have to pay one of the Sprees at least. But let's just go down the line for 1 and 3. So 4 mana, untap all creatures you control, take another combat phase. So that's kind of standard. 4 mana, take another combat after this combat. But it has other stuff it can do. You can add 2, so you can make it for 3 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and first strike until end of turn, so you can use it as a combat trick. For just 1 additional mana, so 2 total. You can choose target opponent. Whenever a creature you control deals combat to that player this turn, you can create a tapped treasure token. And maybe it's worth mentioning Magda doesn't give a shit if they are tapped. Magda can tap the sacked treasures. So if you pay, I think probably the best modes that you're usually going to use would be pay the Spree for the top and bottom ability. So 4 for the Spree, 1 for the cost of the spell itself is 5 mana total. You take an extra combat, and until end of turn, every time you hit that person that you targeted with one of your creatures, it makes a treasure token for you. Ghostfire Slice, is this better Lightning Bolt? It's 19 cents, and it might be better Lightning Bolt. In our format, I think it is. Like, especially in budget competitive, like, who's not playing? You're almost never going to be in a pod where none of your opponents have at least 2 color. At least a permanent play that's multiple colors. But usually, if you're playing in a 4-player pod, at least 2 of the players are playing multicolored commanders. And in our slice of the format, budget, like $100 budget competitive, most of the decks are very commander reliant, very commander centric. That's kind of how you make your deck work. I think that's one of the nice things. I think that's a feature, not a bug of the format. But even if this is like dead, if it's not like it's a Red Blast or one of the Veils. Even if you don't have this thing enabled, so even if it's not turned on, it is only 3 mana, instant speed. Ghostfire Slice deals 4 damage to any target. So for 3 mana at instant speed, that is not the end of the world. It's really not that bad. But for most of the time, it's just 1 red mana, deal 4 damage to any target. You can burn people to the face with it. I use it as a finisher in some of my decks with like the reiterate lines where you're going off with a big ritual and reiterate to make infinite mana, and then once you've got infinite mana, you start Ghostfire slicing people in the face over and over and over. Very, very good. 19 cents. It costs almost nothing to add this in your deck. So I think it should just be in most most budget competitive decks that have red in their color identity. Return the Favor, again, like red is just getting so much good interaction. This is a copy spell. It's a redirect spell. It can be both. So you can copy a target and or change the target. So if you pay the full mana value, somebody tries to Ghostfire Slice your dude, and you change their target to hit their own dude, and you make a copy of it to hit some other dude. So you can go like 3 for 1 on it, basically. Protect your guy, kill 2 other guys. You're trading 3 for 1, 4 for 1, 1, 2, 3, 3 for 1. Strict Serenade. Probably you know this. This is the other half of what's the other one? Swan Song. In our format, I think this is better than it is in CDH, especially Sans Dockside Extortionist. Most of the combos in our format are creature based, and so Strict Serenade is pretty good at breaking up combos. Blue, if you're like mono blue, you're not gonna always have the best answers for creatures, especially if you just consider the cost here. $1.61, 1 blue mana, target. You can counter target creature or artifact or a planeswalker spell. And then they get a 2/2, who cares? So it counters everything that Swan Song does not counter. For 1 blue mana, it's one of the best counter spells in our format, in my opinion. Untimely Malfunction. This is maybe the best piece of interaction that's come out for red in God since Deflecting Swat, maybe. It's choose 1, destroy target artifact. That's obviously very useful. Or change the target of a target spell with another single target. So it's a 2 mana redirect. That is fantastic. That is a fine rate. God, I think you could almost play it just based on that. And then it also has this other bit of text. 1 or 2 target creatures can't block this turn. Again, it has some homes where you're going to use that ability some of the time. It doesn't need it. It's those first 2 modes that are the important ones. Then we've got Disruptor Flute. Another like Magda mainstay. Being able to tutor this thing into play or just flashing it out for 2 mana. It's 2 colorless flash. As Disruptor Flute enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Spells with the chosen name cost 3 more to cast. And activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. If you're lucky enough to be in a pod where maybe one of your opponents is playing, I don't know, Marwyn, and somebody else has Marwyn in the 99, you name Marwyn, their Marwyns cost 6 to cast, and then they can't activate their abilities anyway. Necrodominance, this should be played. I haven't seen this in any decks, and I think that's a travesty. That's maybe the only reason it didn't make my number 1 spot. And it did not make my number 1 spot, but let's find out what did. So I'm going to give you a countdown here. So number 3, Archdruid's Charm. Only reason it doesn't make number 1 is because of the price. It's a little bit pricey. I still jam it in my green decks. Number 2, drumroll, yeah. Flare of Duplication. And number 1, the winner of the first ever annual Stompy Award is Lively Dirge. This thing is cheap. It's effective. It's CEDHable. This goes in some CEDH decks. I expect to see it go in more CEDH decks. If you're not playing this card, I don't know, put it on your radar. Chances are if you play a black deck, you've got a use for this. And if that's not the case, at some point in the future, you will have. Buy these while they're 74 cents, guys. I can just about guarantee you if they don't see a reprint, they're going to go up. People are going to catch on to how good this is. It can be a 2-for-1. It can do 3 things. You can search a card and animate 2 things. Doesn't even have to be the same things. You can, find your whatever, well, you get the idea. Moving on. Okay. I was going to show you the top 3, but we're kind of... My original game plan was to go like show you your top 3 picks and then show you the winner. But let's go to the where are we at? The best commanders. No, let's do the reprints first. Okay, so these are the reprints. Obviously the 99 cards, that's going to take the longest amount of time. We can get through the rest of these pretty quick. These are your best, most important reprints for budget, competitive, like $100 max CDH in the year of our Lord 2024. Birds of Paradise. This was getting expensive. It keeps getting reprinted. It keeps getting expensive anyway. At $4.77, you can put this in your decks that need it. If you're playing a 3-color green deck, probably you should play Birds of Paradise. You should make room for it. It's the best mana dork in the game. It's almost out of price range, but I would play this. I do have this in multiple lists. In Kinnan, it's fantastic. There's lots of homes. And also buy these now, because if they're not reprinted, they will just climb and climb and climb. Sylvan Safekeeper at $1.76. This thing was $20 at one time, something like that. I bought one for that. So I bought a bunch of these. I probably single-handedly rose the price up to $1.76. It's probably cheaper than that. You've got me to thank for the extra 70 cents or whatever. Sylvan Safekeeper, if you haven't played against this, I think it'd be difficult to understand what a pain in the ass this is. So you look at it, it's 1 green, It's 1/1, and it says sacrifice a land. Target creature you control gains Shroud until end of turn. And it feels like, yeah, well, I've only got a limited number of lands, and I don't want to sacrifice lands. And it feels like it's not that great. You're only going to be able to do it once, maybe twice, and it's going to set you back when you do. But that's usually not the way it actually plays out. The way it usually plays out is it protects your combo, and instead of not winning, you win. Or even, maybe that's not the way it usually, that's one of the ways it usually plays out. And then one of the other major ways it plays out is it almost might as well just say your creatures cannot be, that your creatures have Shroud, period. Because everybody knows that if they waste their, now we're playing a 1v1v1, we're playing a 4-player free-for-all format. I can't afford to waste my removal to cause you to sacrifice one of your lands. And I know damn well that if I choose a high-value target to hit with my Swords to Plowshares, you're going to sacrifice a land. And that'll put you down a land, but it puts me down a Swords, and it doesn't get rid of the thing that I want to get rid of. And so what ends up happening is I just don't spend my Swords to Plowshares. And then the next guy doesn't spend his Lightning Bolt. And the next guy doesn't spend his, now, Abrupt Decay. Now that we can afford Abrupt Decay. Why isn't it changing to Abrupt Decay? A little bit, I think I need a new computer. When's Christmas? So yeah, like Abrupt Decay can't be countered, but it can be shrouded away. Sylvan Safekeeper, put this in your decks, play it. As soon as you play against this one time, you're going to see, wow, that Navanad, he knows what, he's a smart bitch. He knows what he's talking about, and you'll never leave home without it again. Buried Alive, amazing reprint. This was getting expensive too. Another reprint that just opened up so many. Golgari got so spoiled this year, especially in reprints, but also in new cards like Lively Dirge. Buried Alive unlocks decks. It gives you the ability to play like Budget Crick. It gives you the ability to play just budget Reanimator lists. Budget anything that uses like the Scourge Familiar, Asmodeus, and whatever that Necrotic Ooze line. Buried Alive, sets that whole line up. There's lots of decks that have Buried Alive lines. Reanimate also still not super cheap, but $5.37 for one of the best spells ever printed in black, ever printed period in the history of the game. Even at $100, this should find its way into some of your decks. This is an absolutely game warping spell. Maybe my favorite trick to play with this is you get a Razakath in the maybe put a Razakath, a Villas, and what's that hermit called that makes your stuff uncounterable? Benevolent Hermit? Benevolent Geist? Something Hermit. Benevolent Hermit. I don't know. You put that damn Hermit and your 2 demons in the graveyard, and then you can reanimate for 1 black mana. You can get your Villas, and Villas says that whenever you take damage or lose life, you draw cards. It's lose life, I guess. But the way that the stack works, if you hit the Villas in the graveyard with the reanimate, it's going to cost you 8 life, but the Villas is actually going to see you lose that 8 life. That's the way you stack the triggers. So that means that you're going to get, for 1 black mana and 8 life, you're going to get an 8/8 demon that makes it really hard to beat you, because every time you take damage, you draw cards. But you're also going to draw 8 cards. It's like a little mini 1 mana ad nauseum. Reanimate is busted. It's a broken card. I play it in CDH even when I don't have a reanimator strategy. Just to reanimate value pieces and mess other people up when they're trying to do something with their graveyard, or steal somebody's Razakath and go off. Abrupt Decay probably needs no interruption. It doesn't need an interruption, that's for damn sure. Probably needs no interruption. That's actually not intended as a pun, but it's funny because it can't be interrupted, right? So this is a 1 green, 1 black, Golgari, 1 Golgari, black green. Instant, this spell can't be countered. That's like, this spell can't be countered. I mean, just let that sink in, man. There is nothing you can do about this 9 times out of 10. Destroy target non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less. Oh, it doesn't hit all those 4 mana cards that we play never? No, that's not exactly true, but this is going to hit. Hey, look, no spells in the entire game hit everything. What the shit? little bit of technical difficulty. No spell hits everything. Everything can't hit something. Everything can't hit something. Yeah, that's right. Abrupt Decay hits 90+% of the things you care to hit, and it can't be countered. Animate Dead, another much needed reprint. Got the price down to $4.39. This has been a good year for Golgar. It's been a good year for Hulk decks. Let's move on to the... we're going to do the winner first, aren't we? Okay, so the top 3 in this category. I know there's only like, 7? So the top 3 are... We didn't even talk about Assassin's Trophy. You know what Assassin's Trophy is, but did you know it was $2.21? One of the best removal pieces in our slice of the format. We're just gonna go straight to the winner. This has taken a little bit longer than I anticipated. I'm sure y'all have better things to do, more things to do, other things to do. You want to get on with the rest of your day. Let's look and see what card gets the Stompy. Abrupt Decay. Not this lame ass art though. I freaking hate this art. But if you love it, that's cool. But that's your number 1 best reprint of the year of 2024. And let's go to the best commanders. Most of these probably need no introduction. We've already talked about Balin. Infinite. It's an infinite outlet. It's got a little bit more going on than that. You can draw some. It's a value piece. It's an outlet. It slices, it dices, it allows you to play Naya and have a commander that actually does stuff, and it wins the game with the Basking Root Walla combos. All versions of it. The Jolly Balloon Man, or as I like to call him, Squeaky Jeeky. This is, it's like playing Kiki Jiki, except it's got 2 advantages over Kiki Jiki in the command zone. 1, the color white, which is big. Getting that extra color is just a massive, massive boost in power. And the other thing is it gets, an 89-cent price tag, which is really, that's something. Gev Scaled Scorch. This is, it allows you to do a bunch of persist combos, but the persist combos are really good in exactly black and red. They're mana efficient, and there's tons of them. So you get to play 3 A plus B combos, but all of the A's mix with all of the B's. It just turns your deck into combo the deck. Glarb, Calamity's Augur. This thing I love this card so much. I don't love the the vibe. I don't know. Lots of people do. I just think it's a little cartoony for my taste. That's just me. I like it a lot better than the other world stuff. I'm glad that we're back in Magic world with this one. And it's a cool piece of art. I don't know. It's not my vibe. It doesn't do it for me. But the mechanics of this card really, really, really do. First of all, I love Sultai. Second, I love when a card not only enables combos, but it enables multiple combos. I mean, this guy enables so many different play lines that you can't play them all in the same deck. So you really have to make decisions about which way you want to go. You can look at the top card of your library at any time, and that is any time, even as a spell is resolving. You may play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library. You can tap it to Surveil 2. The way I built this deck was an IsoRev deck. Isocron Scepter Dramatic Reversal. You go off and surveil and surveil and surveil, and you just keep throwing stuff into your graveyard and milling yourself out until finally the last card, and you can surveil and arrange this to happen. The last card that you have on top of your deck, which it's your entire deck at that point, is Lab Jace, and you cast it for 4 mana off the top of your deck. You activate your Planeswalker ability, you win the game. But you can do other things. You can have a little Reanimator package in the deck. You can do so much. Bolus's Citadel is busted with this guy. Countertop. The countertop stuff is nasty in here. Tons and tons of things. Glarb is sick. The colors are sick. It's only 3 mana. It's a 2/4, got a big butt. Surveiling is kind of like a little value engine, and you can build the deck to turn it into a value engine with a bunch of cards that you can play from your graveyard. Ones that'll draw you cards. There's ones, what the Malevolent, I can't think of it, Benevolent Hermit or Malevolent Hermit. That's in my version of the deck. If you can tap it and untap it infinitely, you basically win the game on the spot. And with the IsoRev combo here, you don't even have to go mana positive. You can go mana neutral with that combo and still mill yourself out. You could put You could put Labman, or if you have the budget for it, Thassa's Oracle. And you'll just bend it, put it in the graveyard, and while you're milling, you can mill past a Narcomoeba and put that in play, and maybe use that Forsaken Miner if you're committing crimes. And just make sure that you've got your deck set up so that you can get creatures into play by milling. There's things that do that, like Narcomoeba. And then you can use the Reanimate spell that has flashback of sacrifice some creatures. Flash that back, and put your Thassa's Oracle into play and win the game. It's almost unlimited. Melik Reforged Researcher. I freaking love this card. I wanted to build this, but when it came out, there weren't that many. What I wanted to do with it is time walks, right? Like, if you can reduce the cost of your time walks by 3, that means that you have like 2 and 3 mana time walks, lots of them. But there weren't a lot of time walks that were not real expensive. But since then, we've gotten a number of time walks reprinted, and I think that puts this guy back in contention for a deck that you could build on a budget that you could actually make it work. So this guy's awesome. If you saw my video, Niv Mizzet Visionary is crazy. If you untap with this guy in play and you didn't do a shit job of building your deck, you're going to win the game. Somebody's got to knock this guy out before you untap with it. It's kind of that simple. If you get to untap with this dude, you should win the game virtually always. Stella Lee wildcard. What can I say? She's just sick. She's like the Isochron Scepter in the command zone, but it doesn't just go off with dramatic reversal. You don't even need a payoff. Some of the things that she goes off with will actually just murder your opponents on the spot. You get Stella Lee out, you cast a couple of cantrips, and then the third card you cast, as long as it has some ability, some little effect, and it untaps her, you can just do that endless times, draw your deck, ping everybody out. The one with the wicked roll tokens, take control of target creature, put a roll token on it, untap it, and then you can tap it again and put another copy of it, tap it again and put another copy, tap it again, put another copy, and just burn everybody out. She's sick. I've seen her. I played against her in CDH tournaments. I play against her in CDH games fairly often. And finally, we've got the Ravenous Ride Gitrog monster. The Gitrog Ravenous Ride is a 6/5 trample haste for 5 mana. It is a Protean Hawk discard or sacrifice outlet. It's a value engine. The thing, whenever the Gitrog Ravenous Ride deals combat damage to a player, you can sacrifice a creature that saddled it. So you just tap one of your dudes to saddle it. You attack. You sacrifice that dude. Then you draw X cards and put up to X land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. So use some of the Selvala mainstays. Put that Gigantosaurus thing, or you've got your 8/8s for 3. You've got your 10/10 for 5. You put those big power overstated 6/6s for 3 and 5/5s for 2 in your deck. You saddle them on Gitrog. You attack. You sacrifice. You draw 5 cards. Draw 6 cards. Draw 10 cards. And then you put all the lands that you want into play. Tapped, but that's okay, because then on the next turn you're probably going to win the game. You may win it on that turn. It depends on how you build the deck. I've got a deck tech for this too. Look it up, watch it. I actually went through the entire building process. So who's our number 1 commander? Without further ado, the last Stompy award of the first day of the rest of your life in 2025 goes to, drumroll please, this mofo. I hope you enjoyed my video. That's it. A round of applause for all of the Stompy Award winners. Yeah, until next time, nerds. May all your outs be live. May all the girls love you. Until we meet again. I'm trying to say things I haven't said before, but I think I've ran out of weird, strange, mildly disturbing greetings and departures. Aloha? I haven't done aloha. May the force be with you. May peace be with you, and also with you. And east side until the day that I die.